Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's June. You know what that means? It is the slowest time of the year for college football. There's absolutely nothing going on, and I don't know what on earth we'll talk about all month long.
Yeah, we're just going to have to manufacture stuff. This is where you just come up with stuff, make up stuff. Or, Tom, we could talk about some of the 51 official visits that Ohio State has this month, or the 150 to 200 unofficial visits they have this month. Or, Tom, we don't have to talk about that if you don't want to.
So we don't have to do the 10 most intimidating venues in the Big Ten. No, we don't have to. Okay, all right, fine. I guess if there's news, that's fine. We can talk about some news. That's fine.
What? All right, now we've got to talk about the 10 most intimidating venues.
Save it for July, friend.
Yes,
Save it for July.
You know what isn't intimidating is when you can see like treetops over the top of a stadium like you can in Michigan. Like when your big stadium is, I don't know, maybe a story and a half tall, and then it just goes into the ground. It's not intimidating.
It's not. Now, the Rose Bowl's like that, and the Rose Bowl's a perfectly lovely venue. And I think North Carolina's stadium is like that, too, where you can see like trees either behind the end zones or something. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't give you the, we're trapped and there's no way out. It's like, oh, well, we'll just shimmy down that tree right next to the stadium and we can escape and it will be fine.
It's easy peasy. Just crawl up the temporary lights that they have to install and then crawl down. So, Tom, Ohio State is having recruits back on campus this month for the first time since March of 2020, which everybody is doing now that the dead period and everything has been lifted. So we just talk about what's happening this week, and we'll get to that. We talked with Mark Pantoni, OSU's director of recruiting and player personnel, and also Aaron Dunston, the new on-campus director. Last week, you can catch most of our entire conversation about that on today's morning scoop, I believe. And we go into. Did we, Tom? Is that what Tuesday's show is about?
Yes, that's Tuesday's morning scoop was us kind of going through what this month is going to be like for them, some of the numbers involved. I mean, there's crazy numbers. We'll probably talk about them here as well. But I mean, like they are going to have as many or more official visits in this 1 month span as they would have in a typical full year. Because everyone is just kind of like, I think the lesson everyone has learned in the last year or so is don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today, because there are no guarantees that nothing, something is not going to change 2 months from now. So get all your official visits in right now, as during the 1 month you can, and then you'll figure everything else out in the fall. But yeah, so this is going to be just a remarkably hectic month for Ohio State, for everyone involved in that program and everyone involved in every college football program across the country.
Yeah, so 51 official visits this month. You mentioned the importance of it, because you don't know if these players are going to come back to campus. They've been stuck home forever. Now they're finally getting to see places. They're going to fall in love with places, and they're going to commit, and they may shut down their recruitment at that point. And so if you're not in this first wave, these June visits, and you're like, no, we'll wait till the season. That's when we make our money with the visits to the stadium during the games. There may not be a lot of guys left. And so you try to get in, I guess, as many as you can right now. The Buckeyes have, 51 official visits this month. The normal year, according to Mark and Aaron, were like 45 to 50-ish, somewhere in there. So they're going to be above that. The normal max is 62, but I think Pantoni made it sound like that's been expanded this year just because of everything. So don't worry that they only have like 11 official visits remaining for the rest of the year. I don't believe that will be the case. It will be interesting, Tom. What they're going to try to do then is you get these official visits now, and for the players still deciding in the fall, or even players who have decided in the fall, if you can get them back on campus for an unofficial visit during a game, that's them paying their own money to come to your campus when maybe they are still a little undecided. And it's always when they're willing to put their own money on the table and come visit a place, you can kind of reel them in at that point.
Well, official visits, because the school has to foot the bill for them, and also they're somewhat limited in number. Official visits, I always feel like, tell you almost more what a school thinks of a player than what a player thinks of a school, because it's you get 5 official visits, so It tells you you're in a player's top 5. That's about it. But if a school doesn't think you're serious, at least a decent possibility of committing, they're not going to spend one of those limited official visits on you. So, that's at least a little bit of an indication where the school thinks of a player. Unofficial visits, as you said, that tells you almost more what the player thinks of the school. If a player, if a guy's making 3, 4, 5 unofficial visits, or he's flying across the country from California to Ohio on his own dime, that tells you they're pretty serious about Ohio State. So you kind of, you can read a little bit into both things from both sides. But yeah, if all the guys who are coming on official visits, you only get one per school. So if you're in an official visit this weekend, that's it. And if you're going to come back, you're going to come back on your own dime. And then, guys who are not committed, you just kind of, watch what they do, not what they say. Let's see if some of these guys, if for example, Zach Rice, who's a 5-star offensive lineman, he's visiting this weekend officially. He may continue to say that he's interested in coming to Ohio State. Like Tristan Lee, another 5-star offensive tackle last year, said that. And it was like, okay, well, when's he going to come to Columbus? When's he going to come to Columbus? When's he going to come to Columbus? And he never came to Columbus. Guess what? He didn't go to Ohio State. That's, that was a wild recruitment all of its own. But you kind of have to watch what they're doing and not just what they're saying.
Oh, an interesting one to me, and we'll get into all of these recruits in a bit. We have on Buckeye Scoop listed Curtis Perry, who is the number 3 player in Alabama, defensive lineman, number 44 player overall, number 8 defensive lineman nationally. We have him listed as an unofficial visitor. And to me, this speaks of Ohio State is not likely to get this guy out of Alabama. So why pay for him to come here? Like, if you want to come here, do it on your dime. And we'll see. And to me, it's like, yeah, they don't expect to land him, but if he wants to come up and see the place, have at it. The other thing with the unofficial visits is you can also work those guys out for an hour with just one coach watching, a one-on-one workout, the player and the coach. I don't know if he will be subject to that, but that's one thing that is different this year. And that's just one of the things you watch what OSU does, watch what the player does. That one is something that stuck out to me. Like, now we're not assuming this is correct and that he's on an unofficial visit. It's like, yeah, well, if you're really interested, prove it to us.
Yeah, and he's someone he's a top 50 player overall in the country, 8th ranked defensive lineman, 6'3", 267, like big dude, good size, like probably a 3-tech for Ohio State, probably, unless he keeps growing. But he's, again, the last time Ohio State pulled a player out of Alabama, it was 1983. And even then, that was Dante Wheat. And even then, that was like, there's some dispute as to whether he actually ever showed up. He showed up in the media guide, but there's some question as to whether he actually ever enrolled, because I wrote about him a few years ago. And Vaughn Brodnax, who was a fullback on the team, was like, who is that? So if he did not, in fact, show up, then they've never had someone from Alabama. So, I mean, there are just certain spots where Ohio State just doesn't pull people. And you understand why. Like, you have multiple good choices in state. Alabama is a pretty darn good place to go to school. And if you're a defensive lineman, you are pretty likely to win yourself a national championship and go play in the NFL. So that is not an easy place to pull people out of, but you can, I mean, it can happen. They've pulled people out of Louisiana before and places like that. So it can happen, but yeah, that is that may be, assuming this is correct and it's an unofficial, show up now. And if you're still interested in the fall, maybe you have an official visit this fall, sometime a little later on in the season. But yeah, that is not one that I would have on my list of most likely to land a commitment this weekend for sure. But I mean, shoot your shot, right?
It's just sad that Michigan had an Alabama player as recently as Nico Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, Nico Collins sat out and didn't want to play for Michigan last year, but it shows you the different levels that the two programs are recruiting on right now. So, they got that going for them,
which is nice.
So, Tom, let's talk real quick about name, image, and likeness, which is going to be, you may, if you tune your ears correctly this week, you may be able to pick up the frequency of name, image, and likeness, because it's going to be talked about a whole lot coming from the Ohio State campus. And it's going to be about 30% of their presentation to recruits, though Aaron Dunston thinks that it'll probably be about half the conversation when you've got the back and forth going. And why wouldn't it be? I do wonder if some of these recruits and members of the family are like, Ohio State, do you save the name, image, and likeness stuff for last? Like that way, maybe people hear the entire presentation, or are the people like, can you just hurry up and get to the money part? Like, yes, education, yes, football, yes. Please tell us about the money part. Because that would be hard for me to be like, let's just move it along. Let's talk about name, image, and likeness, so we can cover everything else after that. Once I get the questions I really have answered.
Well, it feels like this is kind of a job interview in some ways. And so you go through the responsibilities of the job and the benefits of the job and the workplace and all, here's where you'll be working and here's what you'll be doing kind of thing. And then, you don't start that conversation with, walk in the door, hi, shake, firm handshake, good eye contact. I would like to make this much money. Like, that's not how that conversation generally starts. So I would assume that you're probably doing some of the basics and some of the, that is, here's the thing, that is not something that should be solely making anyone's decision for them. Like, if you're going to make, hypothetically, let's say you're a 5-star player and you have the opportunity to make $200,000 at Ohio State, and you have the opportunity to make, for whatever reason, Alabama can give you 200 or let's pick another team. Let's pick Kentucky. Kentucky, for some reason, because you were a 5-star and you were the only 5-star that they're looking at, they can give you $230,000. Like, okay, are you going to make a decision based on that $30,000? Or are you going to look at, like, hey, Ohio State keeps putting players in the NFL. Kentucky does that much less regularly, even with, some of the same, if you're a 3-star at Ohio State, you're still more likely to probably develop into a better NFL player than you are at Kentucky. So, the difference between being the 30th pick in the draft and the 60th pick in the draft is going to be many times that $30,000 difference in terms of NIL. So are you going to take sort of the short version, the short horizon view of what should make that decision, or are you going to take a longer horizon view? And, I think that you're going to have people who are going to be, do the, I need this, I need this now. And, people are having all sorts of different life situations, and that may be a really urgent need for whatever reason. I don't know that Ohio State's going to be, lagging behind anyone in terms of what they can offer really from that. So I don't know if it's going to make a huge difference, but, these are complicated choices. And sometimes it's just, I don't want to go to school too far away because, that's the Bijan Robinson thing. Like, grandparents didn't want him to go to school so far away, so therefore he didn't go to school so far away, even though Ohio State has a much better track record of developing running backs, and Ohio State has a much better track record on the field, and Ohio, yada, yada, yada. But if his grandparents didn't want him to go so far away, okay, now he's just in Austin, Texas. And so that's fine. That was not a decision that was made on NIL or playing time or player development. There's other factors that go into it. So it's kind of in conclusion, college football is a land of contrasts. Thank you.
I'm going to have to, I take umbrage with your statement about Texas running backs, and they don't produce them into the NFL. Earl Campbell.
Mm-hmm. That was the first one I thought of. Yes.
Cedric Benson, Jamal Charles,
and such.
Ramon Say Taylor. So would you like to apologize to John Makovic?
I'm sorry, Darryl Royal, wherever you are. Fred Akers.
Well, I'm sure they accept your apology as they spit their tobacco juice in heaven. Tom, let's talk about a couple of the visits, because visits will be there may be a visit going on right now. As you listen to this, there probably are. There are 4 unofficial visits slated for June 1st, which is today, including one of a 2022 prospect. Let's explain why there's midweek visits and weekend visits. Ryan Day and his staff wanted to have the 2023 kids coming in during the week. That way they can leave the official visits for the 2022 kids, and the 2023 guys don't feel like they're being short shrifted and ignored, even though there are a couple of 2023 kids coming on some weekends. But you've got 3 unofficial visits from some Ohioans today, and Luke Montgomery, who is an offensive lineman, defensive lineman out of Findlay, probably an offensive lineman if you hear Mark and Bill talk about him. And then Josh Padilla, an offensive guard out of Wayne. Wayne has never sent anybody to Ohio State ever. So that's going to be a tough pull. And then Sonny Styles, the
citation needed. Go on, yes.
the safety out of Pickerington Central, who is rated the number 1 safety in the class. And I don't know that anybody actually thinks he's going to end up at safety because he's already, 6'4", 205 pounds. But the interesting one there for me is Kristen Miller, the 2022 defensive tackle, who is coming in, and because it's unofficial, maybe he'll get a workout in so they can see if they really want to pursue him. Because it sounds like if they do, then they'd have a pretty good shot. So that's what Monday holds. Tom, any expectations for this? I think Josh Padilla may be the most likely of that group to commit at some point, but maybe the first guy in a 2023 class to commit.
Yeah, if you're going to put someone on commitment watch, he's probably the guy. I think they have a pretty good chance with all 3 of those guys right now. I heard Bill Green on with Alex Gleitman on his podcast last week, 2 weeks ago, I think last week, talking about the fact that, they have a bunch of there are some big time players in Ohio for 2023, and Ohio State cannot just kind of rest on their laurels and say, well, they're from Ohio, of course they would want to come play here. No, you're going to have to go out and win these guys, and you can't miss with these guys. And Sonny Styles is someone who, as a freshman, people were talking about yes, his brother is a top 100 wide receiver, but wait till you see the next one. He's the next one. He's the one who, I think that the athletic potential there is just almost limitless. He could end up anywhere from defensive back to defensive end, depending on how he grows and how he fills out. He's someone who I think that they there's a couple guys in the state. Luke Montgomery, Brennan Vernon's another one. There's a bunch of really, really good talent, high-end talent in 2023 that they're going to have to win. What's interesting to me about these 3 guys is this is your first available option, your first possible opportunity. You are knocking on the door at 8:30 in the morning on the first day, let me in. So that's probably a pretty good sign for them. You would think that these are guys, this is obviously an easy visit to make from Pickerington or from Findlay, but these are guys who, this is, the movie Moneyball, where, the first moment that free agency opens up and there's Billy Bean on Scott Hatteberg's doorstep. These are the guys who, okay, the clock strikes midnight. The NCAA says, throw open the doors. And here these guys are outside the doors waiting to come in. So, that's probably not a bad sign for Ohio State, but yeah, I'm with you there. Montgomery and Styles seem like they might go on a little bit longer. At least they're going to take some other visits. Padilla may happen a little sooner, but yeah, they really, when you have a year in Ohio where there's a lot of very, very premium talent, really high level talent, you want to sweep that board, because that's not something that you get every year. Is multiple potential 5 stars in state. You want to make sure you capitalize in that when it does.
Yeah, and I think they feel good about everybody that they're after at this point in Ohio. So we'll see how that goes. Let's move to the weekend then, because they've got 10 committed players coming in for official visits. They have 12 commits in the 2022 class at this point, so that tells you the majority of the class is going to be here. And the reason they wanted to do that, they talked about it as a staff. Pantone said Ryan Day wanted basically to reward the guys who have been committed and get them in here as quickly as possible and just let them get to know everybody, get to know each other. And then also, Tom, maybe help recruit the other 9 official visitors coming in that weekend. 8 actually of 2022 guys of 5 stars and 4 stars. So maybe there's some of that where, hey, come help us recruit these guys and see how it goes. And I think they'll probably be very busy. A couple of the biggest names, CJ Hicks, Captain Buckeye, Quinn Ewers is going to be in town. So I think you've got those 2 kind of leading the way. And then Gabe Powers, linebacker, the 2 receivers, Caleb Burton and Keon Grays, 2 tight ends, Benji Gosnell and Bennett Christian, offensive lineman, Tegra Shabola, and 2 corners Jair Brown and Kai Stokes. I think this is also good to maybe re-energize Jair Brown and make sure he feels solidified in this class. So a pretty big weekend of future Buckeyes, Tom, just of the committed guys. Anything standing out to you? Anything expectation-wise? Do you expect somebody to stand up and like say, I'm out, I decommit?
Probably not during the visit. Probably not. I do think this is going to be, I mean, you think back to all the hoops they had to jump through last year with the Buckeye Bash, having an unofficial thing off campus and then like, oh, we're going to drive through campus together. And like they held it at a restaurant and they went to Jack Sawyer's house at one point. Like all the hoops they had to jump through last year to get together. And you heard guys after that talking about the fact that, that was really impactful to get everyone together. This is the first time all these guys are going to be together in the same room. They've spent a lot of time on Zoom, but I think we all know after the last year, like it's different talking to someone over Zoom. Even if you talk to someone on Zoom 3 times a week, every week, it's different to see them in person and just hang out. And, you don't hit the end button and then it's just like, okay. And now they're gone and not in my head anymore, like until the next time I see them. It's different. And so this is going to be a good weekend to, kind of get the class bonding thing going a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, Jair Brown, there has certainly been some question as to how solid his commitment is right now. It'll be interesting to see where he is at the end of this month, but maybe this weekend solidifies him. You spend time around Kerry Combs, you spend time around all these other guys, and it's like, this is where I want to be. So that'll be interesting. It's also interesting. I think some of the thinking on this was some of the guys they're bringing in on official visits who are not committed might be the kind of guys that maybe, hey, spending time with this group might be able to kind of push them across the finish line and get them to commit. So that's going to be interesting to watch. What happens with Jair Brown this month, and then, do you get a commitment or two by next Tuesday after after these guys get home? Is there someone who goes, yes, that's it, that's where I want to be, and just shuts down his recruitment right then?
Well, I think maybe one of those guys would be Amari Abor, the 5-star defensive end out of Texas, who it just continues to seemingly trend up for Ohio State. And you wonder if this is the thing that would push him over the edge. He's 6'4", 240, number 21 player in the nation, number 5 defensive lineman via 24/7's new defensive rankings, where some defensive ends, they've split it up to defensive lineman and edge. But not all defensive ends are edges. So
all squares are rectangles. Not all rectangles are squares. Yes.
And so you'll have some defensive ends in the same rankings as defensive tackles, and don't let it bother you as much as it bothers me. Just assume that it'll be tweaked. I will never understand why Jack Sawyer is a defensive lineman and not an edge in their rankings when he's an edge in the PFF stuff and all. They're trying to move into the modern realm of football terminology of edge, interior offensive lineman, because they've gone from guards and centers to just interior offensive linemen and tackles. And I understand all of that, but a defensive end to me, a 4-3 defensive end to me is an edge. Call me crazy, Tom. They play on the edge.
Well, and you could be a 3-tech defensive tackle for Ohio State and maybe be an end for a 3-4 team. Like there's just, and I get the blurring of the lines there to a certain degree, but yeah, it's I think in some cases a distinction without a difference in some, for some of these guys. So yes, I have not lost as much sleep over this as you apparently have, but yeah, I was fine with the thing before because I understood the thing before. Now it's just like, well, I knew what a weak side defensive end was and strong side defensive end. Like now what? Like what? So yeah, and it's all like half the time guys who are listed as something on their recruiting profile show up and never actually play that position in college. So it's all a little bit subjective anyway. So yeah, I would not lose too much sleep over it.
And they did get rid of the all-purpose back, which is good. And I think all of the proof you needed for that was like J.K. Dobbins was an all-purpose back and Ezekiel Elliott was an all-purpose back. But I guess all-purpose means all purposes, right? So maybe all running backs should be all-purpose backs.
Mm-hmm. Only Michael Wiley is really an all-purpose back because most of them can't throw. So
That is true. Tremendous reference there, Tom. So Amari Abor from Duncanville, Texas. Do you know how close that is to South Lake Carroll? I'm sure you do with your extensive Texas knowledge.
I don't. I feel like Duncanville's close to College Station, but
I mean, it's Texas. How far can it be?
Yeah. It's all. They're all basically right there. Yeah.
So you bring him in with Quinn Ewers, and maybe who knows? Maybe they know each other very well. But it seems like that's one that's going well for Ohio State. You mentioned Zach Rice out of Virginia. I had the same comparison with the Tristan Lee stuff. It's like, yes, we keep hearing about him and things might look good, but until he actually gets to campus, it does not exist. And so maybe that will start to exist.
Duncanville is a suburb of Dallas, so I was nowhere, not even close. Good job, me.
So how close is he actually to South Lake Carroll then?
That's probably about 4 hours from Dallas to Austin, I'm guessing.
That's nothing for a Texan. Emil Wagner from Wayne as well, if I recall correctly.
Yes. Yep.
Should eventually be a Buckeye, but maybe Notre Dame is getting in there, and maybe some other schools are trying to steer him there. Tom, you mentioned before the show George Fitzpatrick, a 4-star offensive lineman out of Colorado, and I said to you, why does Ohio State continue to go out to Colorado for offensive linemen when it has never worked? I'm not saying this wouldn't work, but what's the fascination with Colorado? I mean, it's cold, it's snowy, it's rocky. I guess that makes for a good offensive lineman, actually.
Yeah, it's either mountain goats or offensive linemen, I think, at that point. Yeah, Joey O'Connor came from there and he didn't. I think he had an injury thing and never panned out. Jake Moretti was committed from there, and I think he was the guy who tore his knee up and then ended up I don't know if what exactly how that conversation went, but after he tore his knee up, he was no longer in Ohio State's class, and he went to go play for Colorado. So, yeah, he was. I will tell you that fully half of my show prep was me looking at Cherry Creek, Colorado, and going, "Who else? Why do I know that school? Who else is from Cherry Creek, Colorado?" And me going back to like the 2015 class and not finding any names that were like, "Aha, this is who it was." But it's Reese Atterbury, the kid who went to Michigan last year. No, that's not where he's from. Maybe it was Jake Moretti. No, that's not where he's from. And just going through it like, maybe no, that's not. And so, yes, I don't know why I know Cherry Creek, Colorado. This is my favorite. This is the best part of the show right there. I don't Cherry Creek, Colorado. It's from something, but I don't know what. Might be a baseball pitcher or something. I don't know.
You're probably confusing it with Walnut Grove, Minnesota, which was the home of Laura Ingalls Wilder. So maybe Cherry Creek was next town over.
What position does she play?
She was all-purpose back, funnily enough. So let's move on to get a couple of defensive linemen. We've already mentioned Curtis Perry, Dominic James out of IMG. Ohio State has done well at IMG, but IMG hasn't necessarily done well for Ohio State. When you look at the players that they've signed from IMG, Isaiah Pryor, Marcus Williamson, Malik Barrow, Legend Cavazos, there's probably more that I'm forgetting. Tyler Gerald. I mean, where has they've gotten almost nothing out of the school, and I can't say almost nothing. Marcus Williamson started, Isaiah Pryor started, but it hasn't been for as many national championships as this school wins. This school meaning IMG, and how talented they are. I'm not saying Ohio State should stop recruiting there. It just seems like it's almost the return hasn't been as great as you would expect.
Yeah, and you never know. Those are kind of different guys and different positions and different classes and all that. And Isaiah Pryor, I think, was okay for Notre Dame last year, and Legend Cavazos has really not gotten an opportunity yet at Ohio State. So
Teron Vincent is going to be good this year, I think.
Teron Vincent. Save it for the next show. That's we're talking on Thursday. We're going to be talking about breakout players, and I will tell you, Teron Vincent is on my list, so you better say him early if you're going to say him for that one. So, yeah, I mean, Teron Vincent is going to be, I think, a pretty good player from there. So the curse of IMG may be broken there, and you have just certain schools where you don't want to draw too much of a conclusion based on a small handful of guys, because it's like what's the school in Brooklyn that Jocelyn Wint and also Curtis Samuel were from, like, and Matthew Jones. Like there's just there's not really a through line there between those three guys. So yeah, I will be interested to see if they can pull him out of IMG. I did not look up. Do you know where he's originally from? Because we've had this IMG conversation before where it's like, yes, you're listed as from IMG, but if you spent the first 17 years of your life living in Texas or Ohio or New Mexico or wherever, that may inform your decision as far as where you're going to college more so than just the fact that you spent a year or two at IMG.
Erasmus Hall is the high school, which has also produced Michael Rappaport, the doctor from the Love Boat, and Tom, most famously of all, Ralph Malph.
Oh man, a 5-star in his day for sure.
I don't know about that. Did you want to argue that point, Tom? You had something else to say?
I didn't say he produced at the college level. I just said he was a 5-star. That's all.
True.
Danny Most, is that correct?
Donnie
Most. Partial credit.
Mostly credit. So then you've also got some defensive backs coming in this weekend. Cornerback Toriano Pride out of St. Louis. Now he's a number 4 player in the state, number 180 player overall, number 22 corner. Steve Wiltfong has some crystal ball to Clemson with an 8. So pretty much just write him off, I guess, at this point, which leaves in the 2 safeties, Xavier
Wanpa.
Thank you. Out of Iowa, and Zion Branch out of Bishop Gorman. Those 2 guys, Branch is crystal ball to USC. You got three predictions there. It seems like Nwampa, there's some rumblings. Maybe he's drifting away. He's very, very close with Keon Grays and seemed to be a future Buckeye at one point, and now who knows?
Yeah, and he's someone who Mark Givler has been kind of hearing for a while. Like, yeah, that's not. Everyone just kind of had him penciled into the class, and Mark Givler for like a month or more has been saying like, I don't know, like that's not. And I think you're starting to see some other people kind of catch up on that now. That okay, maybe there are some questions there with Wanpa and Branch. Like Wanpa, I think was pretty much considered a given. Branch was considered very unlikely. You may see, that could flip. Because Branch is a Bishop Gorman guy, as you mentioned. Like that's the school that produced Haskell Garrett, for example. So you've got a little bit of a tie in there. There's a quarterback of some note a couple of years ago as well from Bishop Gorman by the name of Tate Martel.
Dorian Thompson Robinson. Well, I'm talking about Ohio State people, not yes. Remind me later. We have to talk about Tate Martel burying the hatchet with. What's the name of the quarterback who Justin Fields?
No, the other quarterback who went to 5 different colleges. Yeah, right. Nick Starkel. They buried the hatchet. They had some kind of QB thing, and that was the one where Nick Starkel had been maybe talking a little bit of trash about Tate Martel, and Tate Martel had some very unkind things to say via text message about Nick Starkel's game, and the cleaned up version was he's but my dude. Like it was, and they had a very surly relationship for a while, and have apparently buried the hatchet. It was a really heartwarming thing to see over the weekend. This is the kind of thing that only matters to me. But it was a wonderful, heartwarming moment. They were at some kind of QB competition or camp or something, and apparently got together. And neither of those guys has had the college career he probably dreamed of at the time they were beefing in high school. But anyway, back to Zion Branch. To bring it back to the conversation we're actually having, Zion Branch is, he's a Bishop Gorman guy. I don't know if you're looking at USC, like other than proximity to home and weather, like what's the draw of USC right now? Because who's your head coach next year? Answer: you don't know. That is a real concern, and it's not like USC's been pumping out great, high draft picks for a while. So, yeah, maybe. But if if Ohio State ends up with one of these 2 guys, that's probably pretty, whichever one of it is, like that's fine. If they get both, like fantastic, that's a home run. But the vibe is with some of the guys, the commitments they've taken recently. The vibe to me is like they don't think they're getting both of these guys. So if you get one, that's probably fine.
And they have Kai Stokes committed at safety, though there's some talk that he could end up as a corner as well. So they got 3, I guess, corners committed, or actually 4 with with their other two that I don't have on my list, but I know their names, Tom.
Ryan Turner and
Jaheim Singletary. Haha, you thought you could get me.
Good job.
Thank you for help on Ryan Turner, because again, I only have this week written out. And those are the two commits who aren't officially visiting this weekend. Then you'll have a couple of unofficial visits from Derrick LeBlanc, Florida defensive end, number 54 player in the 2023 class, number 11 defensive lineman, and then defensive tackle John Walker, number 74, nationally number 14 defensive lineman out of Florida. So those are two other guys that looks like they can only get in on the weekend, and then we'll see what happens there. But
those guys are high school teammates as well. They go to Osceola High School in Kissimmee. And LeBlanc is 6'4", 235, and Walker is 6'4", 280. So one of them is probably going to end up playing on the end, and the other one is probably going to end up playing inside. I'll let you figure out which is which.
So it's going to be a fun week, and there's going to be updates flying around like crazy, and speculation and leanings and feedback from OSU that we get. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming, Tom. And it's about time.
It is long past time, I think, at this point, but it just in the last couple of weeks just feels like everyone's kind of like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing life again. Like you're seeing the mask mandates lifted and all that kind of stuff in stores. And I think everyone's kind of like, we've hit the point with the vaccinations that everyone, people are feeling a lot more comfortable with everything, and things are opening up a little more. And it sure seems like you're going to be at 100% capacity in stadiums this fall. And so that is all good. And yeah, this is, it has felt like we're in a little bit of a limbo for the last couple months, because it's like the guys who wanted to commit early have committed early. And then the guys who are waiting on visits are waiting on visits. And then once they kind of said, okay, June 1st, everything's going to open up, it felt like everyone kind of went, okay, let's wait for June 1st, and then like explosion. So you're just, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory? That's the like been the mood of recruiting for the last like 6 weeks. Well, we today is the day we get to the fireworks factory, and this is going to be a month that is like unprecedented in college football. Like college football recruiting is always just completely insane, like just completely nuts in all of the best and worst ways. This is going to be like the most insane month in the history of that completely insane process. Like it is going to be, it's going to be really, 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 really fun to watch. And there's going to be a heck of a lot to talk about, a heck of a lot to follow along with. And, this is a really important part of the process. I know it's easy to just go, there are people who don't follow recruiting at all and kind of hand wave it. And it's like, no. This is actually a really important thing, because if you don't have good players, it is hard to have a good team. Like that is a very important part of this process, is having good players. And you can tell that because the teams that are at the top of the recruiting board every year tend to be the teams that are in the national championship conversation every year.
Yeah. And we didn't even mention JT Tuimoloau has set his official visit schedule. He has confirmed what Buckeye Scoop told you a week or so ago, that he would be here for the third week of official visits. So it'll be June 18th. He'll be in town, and we'll get to experience life in Columbus finally, and get to show him around. And he's got a whirlwind tour. I think Alabama has the last visit. It's such a whirlwind tour. I don't know if the last visit is actually such a good thing at that point, because it's like when you spent 10 days walking around at Disney World, and like the last park is, like I don't care anymore. I just want to go home. I'm tired. I've seen enough. I just want to go back to Epcot.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, because I think some of these guys, especially the 2022 guys, you may have the first visit they fall in love and they commit, and then they cancel their other visits. Like that's a possibility with some people at different schools. I don't think you're going to get that with Tuimoloau. I think at this point, like he's committed to sticking it and doing those five things. So yeah, when Ohio State's right in the middle, they have two before him, Washington and someone before them, and then Ohio State, and then he leaves Ohio State, goes to Oregon, and then leaves Oregon and goes to Alabama. So that's going to be quite a month of drama. We will probably do about 3 or 4 podcasts on the JT Tuimoloau situation throughout the month, because that's going to be. This is just, again, this is the kind of crazy nutso recruiting drama that you don't get all the time. You had this is a little Terrell Pryor-esque, where it just dragged on past the signing day. This would not normally have dragged on till June, except for, gestures vaguely towards everything going on in the world right now. So yeah, this is going to be nutso with that. And then with all these 2022s, you could over under number of additional commitments Ohio State has in 2021, 2022, and 2023 by June 30th. I'm going to set the over under at 5.5.
I was thinking 6.5, so I guess I would go over, but not much.
Six is the number. 6 is the number that I think I landed on as the most likely. So yeah, potentially one for 2021, potentially a guy or two for 2023, and then you bring in 3-ish guys for 2022. Like that seems about right. 6 commitments in a month is bananas. That is almost unprecedented for Ohio State recruiting history to bring in 6 guys in a month. So, and that's just that's kind of the expectation this month. That should give you a pretty good sense for what kind of insanity may be coming.
Yeah, and you can have guys working out on unofficial visits, get their offer and commit as well. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that has happened at camps in the past. But Tom, the good news is, since we talked about JT Tuamalo out here, you can title your YouTube, the YouTube video of the show, something to do with him, and that will help in the search results. So that's always a positive. That will do it for this show. I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you guys for watching. And again, if recruiting is your sort of thing and you're not yet a member at BuckeyeScoop.com, I would highly recommend it. And I don't know why you wouldn't be at this point, because there's going to be tons of stuff going on our Ask the Insiders board from all of our insiders regarding this next month. So check it out. And I promise you, if you don't like it, you can cancel. How's that for a promise? Pretty good. Good job by me. So thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you guys later.